Hello, folks. TheKiest's here, and this is another episode of OPERI, and I'm joined here by Sente.
Hello, everybody.
And we're going to be doing an OPERI on the Tuesday trials, as well as the Tuesday trials number 100 that happened on uh, Tuesday, August 29th of 2023. For those who don't know what an OPERI is, you can see my past videos, but essentially it's just kind of a self-review almost, or a way to do more transparency for non-TOs as well as to serve as kind of like an example for other TOs. OPERI stands for Origins, Preparations, Execution, Reflection, Iteration. Origins pretty much talks about the history of the event, the concept, phases. Preparation is, once you have things booked essentially, or once you have the idea made, what you did to actually carry out everything up to the day of the event. Execution is everything that happened day of the event. And then reflections, when you actually get into the critical side of what you think went right, what you think went wrong. Execution is a lot more objective. It's actually what happened. Reflection is your emotion and response to what happened. And then finally, iteration, it's your new changes, it's your features, and so on. Treat this video more like a podcast. I write stuff in here just so that you can see what's being talked about. I'll have timestamps in the YouTube video of the OPERI parts and stuff. All right. So, for those who don't know, Sente is one of the head TOs of the Tuesday trials, and I guess we're going to kind of ping pong this back. We'll talk about original Tuesday trials first in each of these steps, and then talk about regular. So, the original purpose of Tuesday trials, for those who don't know, I'm just going to put TT0 for the original one. Was to pretty much almost become second Donatos. And at that point is the whole being like it's an FGC / Smash hybrid, which serves as a gateway to the community. And what we mean by that is it's kind of a tournament where new players are extremely welcomed to, or people who are just kind of new to the fighting game or Smash scene in general, and then once they figure out their scene and their niche, they can go out to more specialized events. So for Smash Ultimate, the example of that would have been you go to Donato's and you like the weeklies, and then you hear of Smashland. It's like, oh, that's just a pure Smash Ultimate event. Let's go to that one, even though that one's extremely competitive and has tons of people from out of state. Or for Street Fighter, you would go to level 1 Barcade and stuff. And then a lot of the tournaments were catered to that, which is, we'll get more into that with other stuff. But essentially, Donato's was just getting too big, and so we needed to split it off into the Tuesday trials. And that's kind of backfired, because now the Tuesday trials is kind of hitting the same situation, where it's kind of swelling too much, but that's something we'll talk more in reflection. But but now we're at 100. And when you're talking about a tournament with a scope or purpose at 100, you usually have something a little more specific than the main thing itself. And if you want to talk about that part, Sente, in your point of view.
Yes. So Tuesday Trials started from Tuesday Trials 0 and going all the way to Tuesday Trials 100. We have, I've been focusing more of the scope to introducing new players into the scene. So specifically new players, because we are in a good central location for the OSU campus. So it's very easy walking distance for a lot of new players to come in. And so I've been catering the events to more new player friendly. For example, like the Salty Suite, and also introducing more free to enter games. So the Salty Suite specifically is to target the new players, since they usually will get eliminated fairly early on in bracket or main bracket.
Just to interrupt briefly, for those
Sure.
who don't know, the Salty Suite is the equivalent of the amateur bracket in the Smash community. So this is the tournament where you enter your main game, and then either your 0-2s, 1 or 2s, 2 or 2s, wherever the cutoff is, they get another chance to enter a bracket just for them.
And also for a while there, we were when we had a little bit more room, we were doing mystery game as well. So that gives fairly equal chance to all players to be able to win a bracket, which makes The new players feel good because they usually get a little further in those than our main brackets. And I will get back to the mystery game brackets later in the reflection or in the iteration portion
Yeah, you could
of
even,
ours.
yeah, and kind of, and some of the stuff you can put in preparations too. So, the big thing in Origins is when you're at your 100th one, I guess more specifically, was there any other scope to number 100 that was a
To
little
number
different?
100
Yeah.
specifically,
Yes.
hmm,
That you
I
kind
want
of.
to say, yeah.
So I can
One,
answer that for you if you don't know the answer, because yeah,
yeah, sure, go ahead.
pretty much, you're celebrating it, and the
Right.
way you celebrate this stuff, that's so then once you have these scopes and purposes here, that's when everything else gets thrown out, and that's that kind of stuff. So technically, it's this catering to new players. I'll replace this with. I'm going to do this a lot, people, for those who aren't used to this. So I just changed it more so that when you're watching, you can see what we're talking about and stuff. A lot of this stuff here is actually more on. Oh gosh, my cursor is gone. All right, we'll cheat. There we go. Close enough. This is all more part of the flair. We'll get to that in a minute. But we'll list it there just so that it's there to look at later and stuff. Preparation's kind of like how you're going to execute stuff. So the point is you're catering to new players. I'm going to add across multiple games because you could cater to just Street Fighter players, you could cater to just Fantasy Strike players, but we're catering to all of them, essentially, at the Tuesday Trials. And then number 100 is specifically expelling the 100th milestone event. I'm just going to throw that in there. And that's kind of it on the Origins and stuff. Was there any fun history with number 100 that you guys were kind of anticipating?
Fun history. Well, it was kind of, I think, fitting that in terms of the FG, so the traditional FGC game side, is that it was a happy accident that the new season for Guilty Gear started
Oh,
the
that's fun.
week of Tuesday Trials 100. So, so I think that's a pretty
That's
happy accident.
that is a pretty happy accident. And then I got involved because typically anytime there's a weekly, anytime a weekly gets to a milestone event, like either it's the 50s or the 100s, I either throw in a pot bonus or I run events for people. And my goal this time was to run brackets so that others did not. How that panned out, we'll talk more in the reflections and execution part. But so yeah, so that kind of covers it. So once you know your scope, number 100 is pretty much the same as before. It's just you keep doing it 100 times and so on. So this part for preparations, I'm gonna go very quick on the Origins part because it's kind of a review. People kind of know this part and stuff, but essentially it was Game Arena approached me asking if they could run Smash at their stuff during the week, and I was already toying with the idea of separating Smash from Donatos so that Donatos could have more room for fighting game events. And then the idea was Tuesday Trials could just have Smash Ultimate, and then maybe whatever games that the Ultimate scene could then cater to. At the time was just Strive and BB Tag. Oh yeah, well, I was getting to that part. Fantasy Strike we added because I asked you to run it, which and then you were like, well, if I'm going to run stuff, we're going to run Fantasy Strike.
Yeah.
I'll kind of. I don't think I'm going to do this TTO thing for everything down here and stuff. Now that I think about it, just this would be pretty quick. And then we just used Game Arena's stream, Game Arena's staff. I set the same price point as Donato's. The flair was pretty much the same as Donato's too, except it's just brand new venue. So sometimes you don't have to do anything special because the new venue is already the special new thing and stuff. And so with that, we'll go to talk about 100. So regarding the venue, there's nothing to do because you've already been doing it there. Like you don't have to do anything special this time, unless you guys did do something special this time regarding the venue itself.
So we did. So this is the first week that we swapped for the tournament rooms, specifically on the Smash versus the rest of the games to set up the secondary stream easier. So we had venue help for that, for setting that up for the stream.
Okay, yeah. So, what did you guys have before then? Just like one of them was just for public.
Yeah, Mike Drop was sitting in a corner basically at one of the other stations, and in order to make him make it a little bit better for stream experience as well as secondary commentators, because it was kind of encroaching upon another tournament station.
Yeah.
We moved the stream station into the tournament room, and then uh, Mike Drop was able to stream on the couch right outside the tournament room, which makes it a much better experience for the stream as well as for people watching.
Yeah, that's cool.
So,
I didn't realize that was a first time thing. That went really well. Well, we'll do that more. Point is, like, yeah, we added the second streamer there. We already had Guffy Fish. I'm going to credit him here. Um,
that's also the first time that we did a head-to-head setup also for our mainstream with Guffy Fish. So
yeah, I'll kind of throw that under. Yeah, it's kind of both.
So most of the changes that we did in terms of Tuesday Trials 100 was stream related.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I guess, again, this is more on the preparation side of stuff, now I'm thinking about it, because actually, yeah, which is still part of that stuff. So, Mike Drop had to come up with his overlays, Guffy Fish had to come up with their usual stuff, but I think they probably just used the same assets, I presume. Which, if you don't know the answer to that, that's okay.
Right.
It's easy to check, but... point is you recruited them. That's what happened to this stuff. And then any new changes to the staff besides myself? Like,
no, it was all the same stuff.
And yeah, other players got to come and they got to enter. It was great. I got to. And then and then now we're getting to Flare stuff. This is where, over the course of the 100 of them, you guys have added stuff like the Salty Sweet and more free to enter events to coincide with the main games, and then a lot more side events that aren't like. And for those who are wondering, like, isn't this the same thing? To me, if a Blaze Blue tournament is free, it's not a side event. It's still an event. A side event would be more like amateur bracket, or they did Johnny only for Strive, for example. I would call that a side event. Other places call it that thing, but that's just a personal terminology I just use. Because for a weekly, the ones that are going there for Blaze Blue, to them it's not a side game. To them it is the main event. It's their game. They're playing it. Just because they're competing for nothing, they're still competing and stuff. Whereas for the side event feel, if you will, is that it's a Johnny only. It's like probably everyone in the bracket already knew who the best Johnny was and was going to win it anyway, more or less, or something like that. And everyone else is just like, let's see what I can do. It'll be hilarious, kind of a thing. Still competitive, but that's kind of my definitions on the two things. The other flare we did was getting our drink specials. So, Game Arena staff has been awesome in letting you guys have that secret menu or specific Tuesday only menu and stuff. For quite a while, I believe, right? Like since the first one? Yeah, I think the first one, even. We just used the tension shift menu.
Right, I believe so.
I did try the 100 trials, and it used one of my favorite cocktail ingredients, which is blue caraco. And I had no idea that was going to be in the drink when I ordered it, and I'm like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Yeah, 100th trial. And there was like other ones, I don't remember what they are offhand. I think one of them was
Captain Falcon.
Yeah,
was the one I used. The one I got.
That was the non-alcoholic one.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So we worked with Game Arena, get those names in. They came up with the recipes on their own because obviously they know how to do that. We don't. And then the other flare I'll kind of put in. Some people don't put this as flare. I'm putting it as flare because the whole point of a pot bonus is to hype up things. Which games had this? Was it SF6 Strive and Ultimate?
Yes, SF6 Strive and Ultimate. All of them had $100 added in, and then Fantasy Strike also had $20 added in.
Okay.
And this is all due, which I guess kind of goes into a little bit of the history of what's been going on with Tuesday Trials.
Yeah, what's up?
We have a new esports company that started by our players at Tuesday Trials, by several players at our Tuesday Trials, regulars, called Truly Esports. And they're the ones that contributed the money to the pot bonus for Street Fighter 6, Ultimate Strive, and Fantasy Strike.
Sweet. When that team gets started, do you know?
That started probably around, oh geez, man, it's been several months now.
Less than a year? More than a year?
Less than a year.
Okay. Yeah, pretty awesome. We just saw one of our shout out to Wobbles, who just got picked up by their team for Street Fighter.
Oh, nice.
They just officially announced that today, which is pretty cool.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah, I like Wobbles. He's a good kid. You know, we could talk about Truly all day and stuff, but the point is, like, yeah, they did that. Some of the Truly members are TOs and staff for the event already, if I'm correct. Yeah, because Major's,
Yes,
yeah, so pretty awesome. You know, it kind of goes back. It's great hearing that because you know part of the scope with Donatos, which is what Tuesday Trials is kind of supposed to be. It's like being a place where not just player talent can grow, but other utility talent can grow too. So that's streamers, that's TOs, and in this case, esports orgs. Give them that starting place. So that's fantastic. And you know, the other preparation stuff's just the usual. The venue's already set up, all the gear's already there. I didn't have to bring anything for a change except for a Switch setup because they always need a Switch setup. You probably bought your usual kit, which I don't even know if you need a kit these days besides your laptop.
Yeah, my laptop's the only thing I bring now. I used to, back in the day at Donato's, I bring my PlayStation, Switch, as well as my PC. So.
All right. Execution time. So I kind of split this up into, you know, the stuff we did before tournament starts. That's just the usual, like, what time did you get there? Like 4:30 or something?
Oh, well, I got there at about 3:15, but that's because I had a meeting with for Saturday trial stuff.
Oh, so, okay. Unrelated thing, yeah.
Unrelated thing. When I started actually doing venue setup, it was probably around 4:15 or so.
So, describe to the audience what all do you do to set up the venue? Because when most people come in, they're coming in after it's already set up and stuff. So it's kind of curious to see what do you change that's already there and all that stuff. Because a lot of people do know what Game Arena's like on a... Actually, maybe they don't know what Game Arena's like on a day-to-day basis. So what all do you change and do?
Okay, so just to give... I'll have to section off several areas. So there's one area we call the blue cubbyhole. There are 6 PCs set up in a corner there. There is... And in the blue cubbyhole area, what we do is there are 4 PCs that we have the Game Arena staff turn on and log in, and then I log in into it using our shared tournament organizer Steam account. So our shared tournament organizer Steam account contains all the games that we run at Saturday trials and Tuesday trials to standardize everything. And we also have to bring in 2 extra chairs for the blue cubbyhole because there are only 6 chairs there, but we set up 4 setups there on PC. Also, we are now starting at Tuesday Trials 100. We started putting speakers at each of the stations because now they have access to enough speakers to supply speakers for all stations now.
I didn't realize that was a new thing too. That's pretty cool.
Yes. Yep. So it used to be we just did it for Smash, but now we could do it for all stations. So that's a blue cubbyhole area. Then there's an area called that I call the central area. So it's an open central area that's a bank of 12 PCs, so 6 on each side. On the back side of it is where the FGC setups are put up. We set up 3 stations there, again logging in with Steam and everything else, and setting up the speakers there as well. On the opposite side of that, towards the center of Game Arena, is where the Smash setups go, and that's also where we put all the power strips, as well as speakers as well there, so that the Smash players could put their setups there. And then there are 2 tournament rooms, each of which have 5 PCs in there. We set up 3 stations in each of those. The one, uh, the tournament room, if you were to come in directly into a game arena and stop the tournament room to the left side, we now set up for Smash. So we set those stations up just like we did in the central area. And the right side tournament room we do for standard FGC setup. And we set up 3 stations there as well. In this particular case, because of, and this might be going into a little bit into the weeds, but it'll be helpful for people who need to set up for Street Fighter 6. So Street Fighter 6 has DRM on PC, and you are only allowed to activate on 5 stations in a 24-hour period. So what we do is that we set up the 3 PCs in the tournament room plus 1 PC in the tournament in the cubby hole for Street Fighter 6 if there's a patch or an update that week, because that'll take up 4 of our 5 activations, and then we reserve the 5th activation for mainstream setup that Guffyfish has upstairs, which I'll get into a little bit later. If there is no patch or update that week, then we might be able to get away with just keeping it on offline mode and booting up Street Fighter 6. And then it won't activate our DRM. And so we might be able to get 4 stations in that. But I also have it back up. We have a couple backup Steam accounts, mine personally, as well as 1 or 2 of our other tournament organizers that also have Street Fighter 6 on Steam. So if we absolutely need more stations, we could use those accounts for that week if we run out of DRM.
Right.
Activate.
And you know, as you get more members, you'll get more accounts that can be used and blah 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 and stuff. And if it comes down to that.
Correct. The only issue is that we just have to remember when we need to open up those stations later is to log in with the tournament organizer account, which slows down transition between brackets. But we've done that in the past, so it's just another thing to keep track of which ones that you logged in with the tournament organizer account versus the personal accounts. Then there's the upstairs area, and we set up 5 to 6 stations up there for Smash Ultimate specifically.
Now, to let the audience know a little bit about the upstairs section, usually on regular nights, they don't put stuff up there. That's more of just additional seating, and then they just broadcast more things onto the screens. So the idea is, like, if you're a regular customer, you go in, get your drink, head up to the balcony, set up the bar stool things, and kind of overlook the venue and check whatever mainstream they have going up there and stuff. They normally don't have setups or electronics, unlike the other parts of the LAN centers we use. But since it's our event, we get to do that kind of stuff. Carry on. That's all I was gonna ad-lib in there.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah. So in the upstairs area, so we set up help if we're early enough. We help set up the monitors, power strips, as well as speakers up there with GA staff, and as well as the seating upstairs. And that's all for Smash Ultimate. In terms of the number of stations total, if you look at the blue cubbyhole, the central area, and the tournament room, there are 10 stations total for traditional FGC. And for Smash Ultimate, if you look at the central area, tournament room, and upstairs, there's about 9 to 12 setups. So it's usually 12, I believe. So it's 3,
12,
6,
12 is what we had when I was running it.
Correct. So it's usually 12 setups. And that's usually we are getting, I think, around 40 to 60 people usually for Smash Ultimate right now.
Yeah, you know, that's, well, you're kind of getting a little.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is all set up before that part happens.
Right.
Like,
okay, yeah.
Yep.
So that should be all this. Oh, there's also one other thing we do too, and this is what I've also implemented since Tuesday Trials 0. And we've done this for about 4 or 5 months now. We also go and number the stations. So we have numbering. What are they called?
Yeah, station signs.
So, yeah, station signs. That's it. So we put station signs on all the stations so that we could just call out numbers for stations. So
I did not see them, or I didn't notice them. Like, I know they were there. I just
okay.
honestly did
Okay.
not even see them, and I just pointed out places instead.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
Yep.
yeah,
So then
we'll
we
talk
set those up every time.
we'll talk more on that in reflection, I guess. So
Right.
you know, the reason. Okay, so for those wondering, this pre-tournament thing is separate from preparation because this preparation stuff is everything you're doing before day of. This is all getting your venue, getting your streamers, getting who your staff are, who's your flair, do you have all the equipment you need, execution parts when you show up, and this timestamps for when I do the VODs later. It's all your day of. You're showing up. These are the things you have to set up. A lot of the other Oporis I mentioned I do it the night before, but Game Arena being a business, you can't do it the night before. You do it the hour before, and most venues are like that in general. I'm blessed with places like Donato's and Coffee Underground where I can go in the day before and be like, yeah, no one's using it, go for it, kind of a thing. And which, Game Arena would do that, but they always have stuff going on because they're a busy venue. And then the other thing was just, catching... Not me. I hadn't been there for 100 trials, had to learn how everything else was running and stuff. The other thing I'm going to mention on your guys' end is oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I'm going to just call it I'm just calling it the Insanity Checker until he names it properly. But
yes.
there goes my Insanity, is a computer science grad student or major. I thought he was still in school, but maybe I'm wrong about all that.
No, he graduated.
He graduated, okay.
So.
Maybe it's just when I met him or something. But anywho, point is he's a computer science person. I'm also a computer science person, but I just don't do programming outside of work for personal reasons. Actually, they're not that personal. I just don't want to keep my hobbies with my career, and I don't like coding enough to do it outside of work. But anyways, he made this server that you run, and it's a conflict thing where it will prioritize players who have entered the most games. So if you have someone who is sick, like Moni, and enters everything, that person is prioritized. And not only will it tell you what games this person is and is at the top of this list, my Insanity also added or there goes my sanity. This is actual tag. He added a map, and it'll actually highlight where that player is. So if you need to find them, you know what setup they're at. It's incredible. I can't wait till more kinks get worked out and it gets further in, because that's amazing. I was telling some of the Melee people that yesterday, like, oh my god, that's madness.
We have been using it extensively, and we are definitely the proving grounds for it. It's helped out quite a bit in terms of communication between all the TOs for settling conflicts between all the events.
Yeah, then one can, if I could teach him the reverse bottleneck method, he might be able to automate the thing I kind of want.
Right.
Star 2G started to have something along the lines of what I want, where you make something where you actually never have to see the physical bracket. It just lists you what matches you call in what order, and then updates itself whenever things get delayed and stuff. But anywho, that's under, and we'll talk more about that and under iteration stuff, because I have a lot of thoughts on that stuff. Point is, this Insanity Checker doesn't run its own. You have to he has to actually boot it, and then all the other people have to go to the address and get to it and stuff. One thing I'm going to mention I forgot to do in preparation, because it's more important on the Smash end, because it's a culture thing. Seating. Most of the seating, I used the website called seating.gg. It's kind of newer. What it is, and this is the actual address you put into your URL. I'm not going to actually open the page. You can do it on your own for those watching. It will bring you a web page, and then you pick which game you want the seating for or the rankings for, and then you can either search each player manually and get their ranking number and compare them to other numbers, or you can find a get seating button, click that, put in your start.gg URL as they give an example, and it'll send you a CSV file or comma separated file of how you should seed your tournament based on the rankings. And then that way, if you haven't been paying attention to a scene like myself, on Tuesday where I don't know a lot of the Ultimate players or their strengths and stuff. I know the obvious ones, but not the not obvious ones in the middle people. They rank them for you, and then you can just go down the list, just follow the thing, and seed them that way, and then you just have to deal with regional conflicts. Something I did in the preparation thing was I was seeding daily for 5 days, and the big reason I did this is because I have discovered when you're doing a greater than 40-man event that people are signing up for over a period of time, especially for a milestone event, it's better to seed as soon as you can, and then start.gg, they add the new players into the back, and it's a lot easier to take that one guy and go, oh, where does he fit in if there's already a sorted list, just in general. So if you do that every day, you're spending more days on it, but the total time spent seeding goes down significantly because you're not doing it all at the day of. We still had to do a lot of stuff day of, which we're going to get to in just a sec, but that part just reminded me of that part. So, you know, I did one last seeding check for Ultimate and had the other FGC TOs. Actually, I'll just have it do that. That works too. Those had, like, far less entrants, and I didn't know those people, so I just asked them to just seed it and stuff. And that kind of covered it. I was all ready to go, and then to kick off the tournaments, we, you know, they did the combo contest. That was all ran by Ikafuma, which was one of the side events of this one. So, for those who don't know, pretty much what they did is they had 3 judges, and then each person had 4 minutes to do the best combo in that 4-minute period, using any character. I think there was like a restriction on stage and who their opponent was or something like that, and I think they had to be a true combo. So that happened first. That happened on stream, which was also awesome, because then everyone got to watch it and see what people came up with and stuff. Very cool side event. I was really happy. That's a good milestone one, because you kind of get to see, like, hey, these are what our players are capable of in a vacuum that they might not pull off on stream and stuff per se because of the pressure, or they want to win and not style. I'm surprised more FGC games don't do that as much, but there's not as many that has the good combo expression. Like Uni does, Killer Instinct does, Marvel does. Street Fighter not as much. Like, you can do a combo contest and it's kind of cool, but a lot of the characters are kind of designed to be more or less weirdly combo oriented. Street Fighter 6 is different though. Drive Rush changes things. Then, while that was going, is when I did my initial announcement thing. I'll talk more about this in the reflection thing, but I kind of picked the wrong time for this. Because what I did, for those who don't go to the tournament, is, not 100 years. I got up on the chair, talked about how proud I was of the scene. 100 trial events is pretty awesome. Everybody likes the event. TOs like the event. All new games keep going to the event. Plenty of streams. And I thanked all the TOs. I had that list given to me by Sente and Chris Ikafuma. Ikamafuma. I'll pronounce the tag eventually because I'm going to be training him soon. But that took about 10 minutes, and that started a little late. And because of that, we then had to call the following brackets all at once. SF6, Xrd, and Ultimate. And when you try to call 3 events at once, what will happen, and I kind of broke a taboo, which I'll get to in a minute. I called SF6 first. Actually, I called Xrd first, technically before the thing started. So I'm going to put that in order. Whoa, that was not what I wanted. I did get my cursor back, by the way, because I accidentally closed the Notepad++ while you were talking about setting up.
Right.
Because I did this, what happened is by the time I was calling Ultimate, Xrd matches were finishing. And Ultimate had conflicts in seeding, especially, I'll just say regional conflicts. We had Sente players that were going to play too early. Definitely didn't want that because they drove 2 hours to come to Tuesday Trials 100. They shouldn't play their car ever, especially when you have 70 entrants and stuff. And this meant Xrd and SF6 initial matches ended before Alt was called. Or ended while Alt was called. So when that happened, I then called as many matches as I could for Ultimate. I'm going to mention this part because I'm just going to call it the Tenet problem from going on forward. And this kind of has to do with us casually. This kind of goes back to the scope of the event. So remember, scope of the event is we want new players, we want all players. That's kind of just part of it. I'm going way too far up. Yeah, getting new players across multiple stuff. There was a very good player who's 15 years old who has a curfew. He has to leave early. So as a TO, you have two options. You either blitz his match. You either tell him, yeah, you probably shouldn't enter, or I'm just going to DQ you whenever I get you in bracket. You run your stuff as normal. Don't do any special treatment. Or you do what I did, which is something called getting to your guaranteed placement, which means you blitz them through winners. This kid got to grand finals, got to winners finals, which meant he got guaranteed third place, because if he got DQ'd from both positions, then he gets third, and he gets paid. If you just run all your losers matches and don't get to this part, then he ends up leaving at like round 3 or 4 of winners and does not get his guaranteed highest placement and stuff. This is one of those things where it's based on the scope. If this was a monthly, you don't do that. If this is a major, you don't do that, right? But at a local, where we're about all creating a scene and growing a scene, this is where you kind of make these kind of judgments and stuff. And that was my mindset for that part. Any thoughts on that Tenet problem thing? Or did you even know about this?
I knew somewhat about it, and I agree with you as far as treating it that way. Blitz them through as fast as they can because you want to keep them in the scene, and just giving them a bad taste of the scene by repeatedly not taking into account because we are trying to cater to new players and bring new people into the scene. Yeah, we don't. It's just that also making sure to communicate that this generally won't happen at like a majors or a monthly or something like that. Let him know that if he was going to be entering in one of those, he probably would not be getting that special treatment.
And this is not saying Carrot and Ikafuma have not been doing this. I'm more particularly talking about this 100th event and letting the public know what's going on and stuff. Because again, teaching tool and for history purposes. And then Tenet, new is relative. I think Tenet's been competing for quite a while now. But he's still a youngin', and I call that still, like, how long does it take till you're not new, Is it, where do you do the cutoff, right? Is it like you've been to 2 events? If you only been to 2 events, but it's over 3 years, are you really kind of you're a new player, but you're kind of not. You were in the scene for 3 years, technically. I don't know, kind of weird like that, but...
Right.
And, it's... If Tenet wasn't good, you could still do this. Like, if he was an 0-2, you just, all right, let's get his matches done first, so you can go home.
Right.
I haven't seen a new player get to winners finals doing this before, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I didn't realize he would get so far until you pointed it out to me on Tuesday Trail 100. I was like, oh, that's a unique problem.
So then during Ultimate, and then because of the size of Ultimate match calling stuff, is that as you get matches called and get players through their setups, Ultimate's a less mature scene. I'm flat out going to state it that way, where you have to kind of babysit them to make sure they actually go to their stations. Big problem is kind of the venue structure runs into this a little bit, but you have to like fight with upstairs setups, balcony stuff, or sorry, I'm going to call it patio because that's what it is. And there's not really a good central area you can check everything. Or if there is, I wasn't utilizing it. I thought I picked the most central area, but I couldn't really see upstairs or anyone who was lounging at the reg desk. All those delays meant that I did not start Strive. And then you can take over from this point, because I honestly don't know what happened after 8 o'clock as far as your guys' end
Sure. So I will rewind a little bit back towards when you were starting to call Smash Ultimate, and I started noticing that we were going to be delayed a good bit for, like you said, Street Fighter 6, Exerd, as well as the Here's Johnny bracket and Fantasy Strike. And there goes my sanity. Would actually came up to me and said, "Hey, I need to start. I'll go ahead and start calling matches because it looks like TheKiest's is going to be in the Smash Ultimate cycle of calling a whole bunch of matches, and we need to get matches started." I said, "Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to let TheKiest know." So then I went over to you. I notified you that we're going to start calling the Here's Johnny Bracket, Street Fighter, and then Here's Johnny Bracket and Exerd. Because that was what There Goes My Sanity was going to handle. And so then you said, go ahead. And so then he started taking over, calling those brackets. I started doing finalizing seeding on Guilty Gear Strive a little bit. And I do believe that There Goes My Sanity also went through one more time on Guilty Gear Strive before it started. Because then I had to also start calling Fantasy Strike bracket, as well as still signing in some people that were coming in a little later. It was mostly the Strive, Guilty Gear Strive players.
I'm gonna comment very briefly right now, because this is a terminology that's mixed up with a lot of people in the scene and a lot of TOs too. People will mention something along the lines of, "I had to step in to help the event." Okay.
Right.
Sometimes they'll say that, but for example, when if someone takes the initiative, that's called stepping in this case. There's a good group of TOs that will ask someone. I asked Major to run his thing, to run Street Fighter. We'll get to that later. So that's delegating. And Sanity did something called stepping in. And the reason I'm making this distinction is because a lot of people will use the term, "I stepped in and saved this tournament," or "I stepped in and because I did that, this tournament now finished." Whereas they technically didn't step in if they were asked to. In this case, Sanity actually did step in and saved this tournament because he took up that initiative thing. Which we'll get to more in the reflection then, but I just wanted to call out the terminology that I've heard from other TOs in the past and stuff. So Sanity stepped in and got his stuff started, and then you got your stuff started, and that kind of started the wave.
As well as Asylum also stepped in. So, actually, give me a little second.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit.
Asylum stepped in with P4AU. So, because P4AU still had some matches left, and he said he would take care of those. And I said, okay, go ahead. So it was Sanity was taking care of Here's Johnny bracket, Exerd, P4A, and P4AU was taking care of Asylum. I was taking care of Fantasy Strike as well as sign-ins and deconflicting on the FGC side, as well as attempting to make sure I communicate with you in terms of if we needed to deconflict players at the Smash side. And then when Guilty Gear Strive came up, then There Goes My Sanity initially called those matches. We had, I don't know how much you want me to go into detail in terms of swapping stations over or station problems.
You can mildly mention them.
Okay.
Because let me step back. The reason I'll mention this for the thing is that we'll get into this when it comes to reflection stuff, but there is a lot of behind the scenes fires that kind of happen at tournaments that a lot of players don't know about because we take care of it. So this video series kind of helps be transparent on that, because during the event we don't want everyone to know like, oh god, we can't get the setup to work, but afterwards it's fine. Okay, it's fine to know this stuff, and I think it's healthy to know this stuff so that players are aware that these are possibilities that can happen, so that if there's a weird delay, if there's a weird sense of what's going on, they kind of have an idea of why it got that far and stuff. So yeah, carry on then.
Okay. So the most notable problem that we had in terms of setups is P4AU froze, I believe, 3 times
Oh good lord.
on 2 stations. This is fairly unique to P4AU on PC specifically. We generally don't have this problem with the other games, but it is P4AU specific. I just want to give a warning out to anybody that wants to run P4AU on PC. What happens is, just to describe what it, a way to fix it with minimal downtime, is that the screen will look like it's frozen, but you'll be able to access like the control delete menu and stuff like that. But because it's taken over basically the video card, uh, you won't see any of your windows.
Oh my goodness.
So many people will just do a hard reboot of the system through the control delete menu. But what you can do is you can press the Windows key or Control Escape to bring up the Start menu, go to Log Off, and it will reset it. So you don't have to actually reboot the PC. That's the fastest way to fix it.
Yeah,
I
since
had to do that 3 separate times.
log off kills
Yeah.
all the tasks and stuff.
Exactly.
Or shuts down all the apps you have active for that user. Yeah, that's incredible.
Exactly.
That's
So
incredible.
I've tried shutting it down through Task Manager and everything else through manual ways, but it will not shut down for some reason.
Hello,
Only
Kurt.
by logging off will it do it. So that happened 3 times, which delayed P4AU a decent amount. Hence the reason why Asylum stepped in to help with that. Good on him. Which so then we got when we have to do that, we have to get the GA staff to come over, log back in, and then we have to have one of our TO staff log into the Steam account and then boot up the game.
You're right.
So you can imagine just how much downtime there can be from that. So that was the station unique problems that we had that kind of delayed a good bit of during the portion, a little bit after you started calling the Smash Ultimate matches. So in terms of switching stations over to different games, we take a look at in terms of how many matches how many stations we actually need for the tournaments, and then swap them over to Guilty Gear Strive as needed, because that's the one that usually we need as many stations as we can.
Yeah, and I call this a rolling add-up switch, essentially. I use the term rolling with it a lot. I don't have like I'm not going to put this on a test or anything, good lord. It's just the point is that it's and this is on the schedule for the Tuesday Trials page on the thing. You'll see like Guilty Gear Strive starts when P4 doesn't need the setups anymore. It's kind of a thing. I do that with Kakuto frequently, or well, I shouldn't say that. I did that with Kakuto 1 through 8. I do not do that with the Kakutos now because I got all more organization with that front, but yeah, and it's also something the Smash scene needs to learn to do with pools, but they have not done that yet. Or some of them do, but not all of them do it. But you know, more on that on another day because we didn't do pools today. So.
So then, by the time we got Guilty Gear Strive started, we were towards the end of the Here's Johnny bracket. P4AU was on its last station. Fantasy Strike was on 1 station. We got through 2 matches, but then the rest were held up through conflicts with other brackets. Let's see. Exerd, I believe, was on its last 4 matches, if I'm recalling correctly. I think it was on its last 4 matches, so it was down to 1 station as well. And then Street Fighter still needed 3 stations, so we had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was 4 stations for Strive. So then when we started Strive, we were able to start blitzing through um, a good portion of the bracket and then as it was as P4 when P4AU cleared up as well as Exert cleared up, they cleared up close to the same time. We were able to catch up on Guilty Gear Strive quite a bit because then we had very few bracket conflicts at that point. We got to, I believe it was winners semifinals. In almost
Call that top 4 for people, because that's more of a
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to winner's side top 4, I should say, at about the right time or about the time that we normally get to, but because of bracket conflicts, our loser's side didn't get to top 16 until much later.
Right.
So once Street Fighter was done, and I believe you're in Ultimate top 8, I think it was. Then that's when Guilty Gear Strive top 16 was done. We were able to blitz through the rest of the losers.
Yeah, so that's kind of nice because then everything snapped into the right place. Because that was around like 10:30, I think.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So,
I'll just put other games stabilized. But don't go too far ahead because I want to step back a bit now that we're talking about past top 8. Because all that happened on my end. Because 60-man bracket. All right, so for my personal comfort level with setups is for traditional fighting games, 1 setup for every 8 players. That can vary depending on how fast the game is. Like Street Fighter 2 Turbo, you could do 1 setup for 30 players, and it'll be extremely quick. You might actually get done faster than like a 2 setup 16-man bracket in some of the modern games. Is how fast Super Turbo can be sometimes. Maybe it's not that exaggerated, but it's still. Point is that I usually go for like a 1 out of 8 people per 1 setup when it comes to the bracket stuff. So if you have 32 entrants for Strive, which is pretty much what happened on your guys' end, then you've got 4 setups, and then once you had those 4 setups, that's when you guys were rolling through, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Ultimate or Smash in general, that number is 4-1 because of not the nature of the game, but it's actually the nature of how long it takes to actually start matches, and this has to do with the character select, stage spanning, stage counterpicking that happens before every game starts. Whereas in traditional fighting games, you just hit rematch. There's some exceptions, or some people just say, let's just do Smash Fill again or something like that, but most don't take that option. They go to their counterpicks, or they think about it, or they take those breaks, because they have that time that they're used to. Whereas FGC is, they're more prone to just rematch. You're not going to run into that. So because of that, and then combined with Smash just being a slower game, in general, it's a 7-minute timer for a game. Most of the other ones, it's roughly 5 minutes, which adds up. We had, what was it? 13, 14 setups. It's the stream count setups I keep messing up on. But the point is, that's only around 50 people, and we had 75. So when that happens, that's when you have to take extra steps to speed up the brackets. So something I was doing that I always do and stuff, and I'm just going to put this as ultimate bracket calling. Especially when you're kind of behind, or you know you're behind because, and when I say behind, it's not necessarily Smash Ultimate was behind, it was Tuesday Trials was behind because of the late starts that luckily Sanity Asylum stepped in to prevent. But the point is that they're behind anyway. So the point is, the whole event itself, not just Ultimate, but everything, Tuesday Trials 100, is behind. What do you do to catch up? On deck matches, I've mentioned this in several OPERIs. I'm going to do it again because it's been a while since I've done an OPERI, is when you call a match, you usually call Sente versus TheKiest's. All right? You guys go to Station 1, and then you call your Station 2 match, Station 3 match. What you actually try to do is, before you call your Station 2 match, you go Sente versus TheKiest's. Winner of that plays Jack. And then you make Jack, you tell Jack, you sit down and play the winner immediately before they even go report it to the TO. This is something that admittedly wouldn't have worked as well back in the day, but these days, a lot of players are honorable. They're going to go, losers will go tell the TO they lost. They're not going to lie about it. I haven't seen that in my entire TO career from any event I've ran. Where they just flat out lie. That just doesn't happen. It did back in the early 2000s and the 90s. You had to, like, watch for it, and that's why it was, like, a rule that only winner reported back when I was learning how to TO. If you don't have a winner that could play immediately on deck, you could call a set, but that's less reliable because then you're having two people try to adapt to this new policy. But typically in losers brackets, or rather I should say, and I'll step back a bit, is the whole, you call your sets on deck, but then you kind of, I'm going to call this stagger the bracket or uneven the bracket, where you do a series of, you don't just do like all your round ones, all your round twos, all your round threes. You separate them to little quads, right? Because in a winner sides bracket, you've got 4 people. Here's a match. Here's a match. And winner of this set will play winner of this set. These 4 people all interact with each other. And especially if it's round 1, those 2 people will also play against the loser of the 2 sets. So it's almost like a mini pool. You set these 4 in a station next to each other. And then that way, when they go report, you know where these 4 are. They're right next to each other because you set them at those 2 stations. That means that if this set finishes, that person goes and reports, "Hey, I just Keist won 2-0 against Sente." I don't know how that happens in any game, but then I could just go, "All right, Keist, you ready to play again?" And I go, "Sure." And then I go, "All right, you just play the winner of this one immediately when they're done," and they just hook over because you did that kind of a split. Tactically, there's more. Even though there's plenty more round ones down all the way here, you still have this happen. And the reason you do that is because it sends more people down to losers. You get to a point where you get to winners at like round 2 or round 3, and loser's side, all of a sudden, you'll get a ton of losers matches, and you just run the goal is to just use every setup. You might have like 1 setup and winners to just do your stream setups. But in this case, I'm just going to say 4-man group for the lack of term here. Then you start eliminating people, and you end up using around 90% of your setups in the losers bracket. And the reason you do this is because that's the hardest part. The hardest part of any tournament, especially the large ones, is getting rid of your 0-2s, getting rid of your 1-2s. But once you get rid of those, you have your people gone, and then all of a sudden you're running a 30-man bracket. I think I was at that point when Strive got to round 3, I think. Around the same time Strive got its half eliminated. And then from there, you have 12 setups for 30 people, and that's insane. I was actually able to get casual setups called really early because you don't need 12 for that many. You can't use 12 for that many. And then because it's uneven, you got people and losers that ended a little sooner, and they were going to wait anyway. I don't know if you joined the thing, Ted. I just saw your comment on it. I'm calling it the people who have to leave early problem. But you're going to be labeled for it because you're the first one I've ever met with this problem who got all the way to winners finals. So I'm just calling it the Tenet problem going forward. You're right. It is funnier. Your reaction's appropriate with the tears, though. You should. If anyone else but me does that, you should just guilt them more. It'll abuse me. Tenet's in the chat, so he was commenting on it. That's why I was mentioning that. Yeah, we have Tenet in the chat. We have Guffish in the chat. He's saying that's funnier. And Carrot says hello.
Oh.
I forgot to cut up on that part. That was a while ago. I kind of did it during my rant and stuff. Anyways, as I was ranting, is you got losers, people that are kind of waiting, and you get to this point where, like, each player on losers can immediately just go, all right, you go wait on station 2, you play the winner of that one. Or I'm just going to say, now that there's other people in here, we'll say, Guffyfish, you play the winner of Sente and Keist in losers bracket. And he goes and watch. And then I point to Carrot and go, hey, Carrot, you play the winner of Guffy's set. And then he could just go watch him. And even if everyone doesn't follow that, as long as like 1 out of 10 follow, you save so much time. You catch up. Because those are 2 matches I don't have to call anymore, right? Because I just called them, and they were listening to it. If I recall them again, and, you know, this is all happening while all the matches are being played anyway, so I'm not losing time doing this. It's a trap a lot of TOs struggle with because they don't want to be busy the whole time, and that's fair. However, if you use this time, you can really save up, and then you're not doing anything during top 8 or top 16 because the tournament's running itself. This takes experience. This takes a long time to get used to. A lot of it at this point I do instinctively, and I'm trying to like phrase it. Carrot kind of helped by giving me some vocab when he was mentioning this and stuff. And then when you do that, you kind of get this whiplash effect. Everything's caught up. All of a sudden, you've run out of losers matches. You're actually at the point where you're like, oh god, have I played enough winners matches yet? And you start queuing up more winner stuff. Even though because you're looking at it, you go, I only went to like round 3 in winners. And it's a 70-man bracket, but... And then it catches up and things. I was actually queuing a few matches on stream for losers, too. And that kind of fits more with the scope of the tournament. We'll get some more of that at that end. This was all happening while you guys were doing your FGC stuff. And then I eventually was able to get to top 8 at, I think, 10, actually. Not even 10:30, it was at 10.
That sounds about right. So, because that's about where we got top 4 winners side, I think, for Guilty Gear Strive. So, and then it was either between, no, it was between like 10 and 10:30 that we got top 16 for the loser side, because that's also when we started doing Salty Sweet, because we cut Salty Sweet off at the top from anybody that made top 16. And then Salty Sweet started running.
Yeah.
So
once top 8 was guaranteed stream, that's when I switched over to help you guys with the FGC side of things.
Right. Yep. And then let's see. I think at that point, Fantasy Strike was down to top 4, which was conflicting, I believe, with Street Fighter 6 with Meat Crab. I believe was. And because Street Fighter 6, I think. Hold on, if I'm remembering that correctly.
And don't worry about that kind of detailed stuff.
Right.
You just say top level player conflict kind of thing.
Yeah, top level player conflicts. And then we were able to then just finish out Fantasy Strike at about, I want to say about 10:45, with the exception of grand finals because of top level conflict. Let's see, Salty Sweet started running through. That did not have any hitches, honestly. It went through very fast, all the way up until, I believe, 11:45 was when it stopped. So Salty Sweet finished out at 11:45. Guilty Gear, once Street Fighter 6 finished off their stream, Guilty Gear was most of the way through top 8, I think, or halfway through top 8 on one side. And so we were just streaming matches and running matches offline all the way up until top 4 from the loser side. And then the rest of top 4 was streamed on the main stream for Guilty Gear Strive. Once that was done, then the last match, Salty Sweet was finishing. Oh, I forgot. Blaze Blue started.
Insanely late.
I think you're right. It did. It started, I think, around 9:30.
Yeah. Because
I
started that one.
Okay. Right. I believe it started around 9:30. I believe it was either 9:30 or 10, or yeah, it was around 9:30 or 10. The last match of Fantasy Strike then concluded at about, I think it was like midnight on the nose. And then Blaze Blue completed, I think, 15 minutes after midnight. So I believe that's what the time was. So I think it was.
Yeah, I think 12:15 is when everything was done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, I started Blaze. Sanity was still calling matches. We'll get to why I'm mentioning this right now. The other thing I did is I gave Mike Drop admin so he could just do the top 8 himself. Carrot gave payouts at one point before top, like a while ago actually. Carrot gave payouts. I'll just put it before here. And then when I was paying out, we forgot to add the pot bonus for Smash Ultimate. So Ikamafuna, I'm starting to learn to spell this, gets pot bonus, keys to distro. I mimicked Carrot's thing, for those wondering. That was the formula for it. Although, now that I think about it, this event doesn't announce payouts, so I'm not going to go that much into detail about it, but I'll mention that in iteration and stuff later. And yeah, and then the last thing of the night was the Jenga thing, which, you know, that happened at midnight and took an hour, and then the event was done. Because there was a Jenga show match, because that's a thing that happens with the Tuesday Trials SF Street Fighter scene. And then you and I, Sente and TheKiest's tore down.
Major also helped a good Major, and I believe Taishinara also helped a good bit with teardown while I was in my Fantasy Strike match grand finals. So they already took the initiative to start tearing down because they already knew it was
okay, so
what we usually do at night.
Yeah. You know, that's just reversing of what Sensei said earlier. You can go back and listen to that part and stuff if you guys forgot, because it's been a while since we've done this part. Then, you and I chatted, but that's technically when the event, that doesn't cover the event. It's more, so I would say the event ended at 1 officially.
Right.
Because Jenga was part of that. I'll just say other brackets ended by 12, 15. Which, you know, marked the first time you guys had to, keep playing after close.
Right. I believe the...
Oh, go on.
Okay, good. I believe the only time that we did that was close was there was a Smash Grand Final Smash that went all the way up until midnight, or maybe just a couple minutes past midnight. I think it was. I think it was like 3 weeks ago. That was the first time that happened. Then.
15 minutes off isn't bad for what disaster we were running in.
I agree.
I'd say it's really good.
Yeah.
All right. That covers execution. This was costly. This is a long section, folks, because a lot happened. A lot of little fires happened, and it was good to it's good to talk about it. Say that they happened and stuff. Now that that's done, we're now at the reflection part, which I'm checking the timestamp of my recording. Oh, good lord, we spent 40 minutes on the execution part.
Holy cow. Okay. All right.
This is where we actually talk about the, oh god, what were we thinking kind of a thing. So, right. You know, this is, execution is the raw facts as much as you can remember it, because you can't really do that unless you do that before and stuff. And, you know, as you're saying, Guffy Fish, that being said, it was a good time. Because here's the real thing about this, all right? Everyone had a great time, I think, from the player's perspective. I think there was a few here and there. I had to DQ one person who didn't show up to an ultimate match after 30 minutes of me yelling for their name. And they definitely played the round 1 match. So that was the only kind of hiccup on that end as far as that player per se. But, like, the players themselves had a really good time. I think you had that. I don't know if that was true on your guys' end. I don't know if you had any like.
No,
audible
I haven't
complaints.
Heard any complaints. No.
Yeah. And then as you said, I would say Django was supposed to lose part of it, but in the sense that it wasn't an official tournament, even requiring TOs and stuff. But yeah, and you know, in my book, it's if you advertise a side thing as an official thing of the event, which Major was doing. He was saying, all right, end of event's going to end with Jenga, stay tuned, it's going to be on the stream. He was saying that for days and stuff. So that means an official event. So, and I think I'm going to start off with this part, and I'm going to even write this down. The mistake of one is the mistake of the team. When you're a team of TOs, when you're a team of staff, especially when you do a big conglomerate, While someone might be the cause of a mistake, for example, me doing the announcement stuff at the time I did it, and not having the seating for Ultimate, not having someone working on the seating of Ultimate while doing the seating stuff, you could say that, like, yes, I was the cause of that mistake. However, our team that night was me, Sente, Carrot, Ikenfuma. There goes my sanity. Major, Asylum, Guffy Fish, Mic Drop, the GA staff. I'm actually not going to include the GA staff. That's not a fair concept because this is us using the GA venue. If it was a GA powered and actually ran a tournament like Smashland, then it is the GA staff. But in this case, it's not the GA staff. It's us 10 people. If I make that kind of mistake, what are the other 9 people doing, right? And that's where the step-in thing comes into play that I was mentioning before. So that's something to learn as well. And this is something I was talking to you, Sente, about. And this is going to be the whole theme of a lot of the things you're going to see here, is that this is not a Smash event next to an FGC event. This is the Tuesday Trials. They're the same event. That means that all members of the staff need to know what each other's doing, and that means all leaders of those staff need to know what each other's doing. I shouldn't have to go... If I ask, there goes my sanity, what's happening in Smash Ultimate right now, he shouldn't have to ask Carrot. He should know that there's a combo contest. He should know that they're at, like, winner's side, because he's also checking the Smash bracket to see where his conflicts are when he's running Strive. So that's kind of the highlight that's going to actually be the root cause of every issue that happens tonight. That happened during all the execution flaws, except for the technical side, because obviously it's not Carrot's fault that Persona 4 Arena froze 3 times. Unless it was. Then that'd be kind of funny.
I'm just going to blame Carrot from now
on. Oh, God, Lord. That's not what I meant by this.
No.
Love you, Carrot.
Nope.
So with that in mind, a lot of the reflection stuff, anytime you mentioned, like, we should have done this, this, and this, it's one of those, if the team is on the same page, that is less likely to happen on things. This is one of the secrets that make Kakuto so beautiful, is that every TO knows the plan of every game. They might not know the exact details, like, where are you in, what is Compy going to do in Vampire Savior at 2 o'clock? Like, they're not going to know that step. They're going to know that Vampire Savior is going to run this bracket this way, because my tournament has a player who's in VSAV. So I have to look at VSAV, see what they're doing. Or I have to be aware that that's, like, something like that. And Compy has the same instructions that you get, Sente, at a Kakuto. The exact same instructions from me or Nate. It's consistent across the board. And then that way, if Compy needs help and you're not doing anything, you can step in immediately. And I shouldn't say step in at that point, because the whole design is that you can go assist, and it's easy, and it's a transition. Compy doesn't have to explain anything, because you just need caught up at, like, where he's at a little bit, but you know the methodology. Does that all sound correct for when you run a Kakuto and help out other TOs?
Yes. Yep.
Do you think any of your team could do that the same for the Ultimate side, and for the Ultimate players and TOs listening, could they do the same on the FGC side?
No.
Right.
I believe not. So.
Yes. So that's something.
That includes me.
Right. Exactly. And that's something that is where, when you guys have that figured out, and this will be hard. It's not easy, because culturally, I get it. If you really don't like a game, why would you ever want to deal with it? If you really hate Smash, why would you ever want to deal with that? If you don't like the culture, why would you ever deal with that? But Tuesday Trials, again, goes back to the scope. What is this tournament? This is a tournament that caters to new players. It doesn't say cater to new Smash players. It doesn't say catering to new FGC players. It's saying catering to new players across everything. So with that in mind, now we can go into specifics on the reflection side of stuff. I'll go first with Ultimate, because this was the thing that went on my end and stuff. And again, Carrot joined this chat recently, but I'm going to say this now. A lot of everything I'm going to be talking about today is all objectives based. It's not a bash on anything on characters or people. I'm going to be equally as critical to myself as I am to all the players I'm going to be listing here today. Because the point of this reflection is to get this out of the open. Get this out of like what happened, who's doing what. But again, as I'm saying this stuff, just because Carrot was... you know, one of the things he did that I had to stop him was is he was asking for a second wave of conflict checks. And I don't blame him. You know, this isn't a bad thing, but just to give you an idea, Sente, is at one point, Carrot yelled at 7 after we were supposed to call Ultimate Bracket. He yelled like, hey, if you have any conflicts, come to me and we'll take care of them, right? And that's fair to do, especially in Ultimate and especially with the out-of-towners. Get that figured out. Once we had those figured out, though, as best we could, it started to become 7:20. And we have to get things going because we have a 70-man bracket that we needed to get everyone out by midnight. This kind of goes into a conflict of, like, I have a good metaphor for this. It's, you do all this preparation and great work when you're preparing for, you're in a castle, you're preparing for a siege. You know the army's coming tomorrow. You do all this work and stuff. And you get your fortifications, and you get your, you know, you're going to assign 4 soldiers to this wall, right? If the siege starts, and your wall is crumbling on the other side, and you see that there's only 2 soldiers here instead of 4, you don't go like, hey, where's the other 2 soldiers? You don't worry about that, because that's not as important anymore, because your wall's fallen on the other side, right? So while we would have liked to have been perfect on the conflict checks, this goes back to what we were saying before. At this point, FGC side is 40 minutes delayed. We don't have time to do a second conflict check. And honestly, I kind of would have wanted to not do any of the conflict checks, but I kind of agreed with you because it was the Cincy players, and we do want to honor them because they took the 2 hours out. But if it was like a Dayton or Mansfield player where it's like under an hour or even an hour, I would have been like, we're sorry. I would have offered the refund, but at this point, we have to get the 70-man bracket going on. Kind of goes into that priority of stuff. But again, like I said at the beginning, one event, if you know about this 40-minute delay thing, do you then ask for the second wave? And it kind of goes to what I was also telling you day of, Carrot, as well, is the whole if you're nice to one player, you end up being a jerk to 40 others because you being nice to that one thing delays everything else. And then those 20 are the ones that get pissed off, but they're not the ones in your face and stuff. The other big thing is, and this is going back to what I was saying earlier, is that I failed to use station numbers, and I honestly just didn't know where they were. Where were they? Like, where were the numbers? Is it like on the monitors?
Right next to the monitors. They're right next to the monitors. We had station stands, and they had a small number thing or whatever next to each of the monitors.
Yeah, but where was it? Like, was it like next to attached to the monitor, or was it just like next to the on the table next to the keyboard?
It was on the table next to the monitor.
So it wasn't like
on a stand.
On a stand.
On a stand.
Yeah, I just completely missed those. Holy crap.
Yep. So
because that would have helped a lot. I could have gone station 2, station 4, and I just didn't. I was like, just play one upstairs.
Right. So what I'm thinking of doing, actually, that'll be in changes and additions, not reflections. Reflection side, I'll say that the station numbers can be hard to see for new players, so they might want to make them more prominent. I don't know if you want to put that in reflection side or
that's
additions of new features.
We'll just add this on here, and even like new players need to learn this stuff too.
Right.
What I did love was I loved, and this is me mentioning this part again, is the people who stepped in. You had Spencer doing stuff on Ultimate. He was gathering players for and queuing up stream matches for the main stream or the Guffy Fish stream, I should call it, during the early parts, because Ultimate gets both streams at first. Saying there goes my sanity again, stepping up for that part, and Asylum stepping up for that part, and technically you for stepping up for that part. I'm just going to list them all here. My fault in that is that I need to realize this is happening, which I had time to, because there was a time where I was just sitting there behind Carrot while he was trying to figure out the final conflicts, and at that point I could have been like, hey, there goes my sanity. I'm sorry, but can you run your stuff? That's what it should have been. Me apologizing that I didn't fulfill my promise, and go ahead and run your stuff instead of me saying nothing and he just does it. Which I'm sure he didn't mind, but this is, again, the whole point of this is it's critical reflection, right? It's moving on and stuff. It's kind of funny. We did a lot of talk in the execution stuff, and now I'm kind of drawing blank on other things I reflected on. Because most of it, everything I think is little things. It's just this column, this row here is the root of all of it.
It was just a lot of little things that add up to becoming a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So, and if we solve the root problem, then it'll stop all those little problems from adding
up. The one other thing is I forgot to fail to check check-ins for Ultimate. Because usually what I do is I then go and like remove all the people that aren't here yet. We had a player named Ouija who ended up coming for his original match stuff. Something I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this per se. I just not my preference is a lot of people like to do like, well, if they signed up online and they don't show up, then I'll DQ them from winners and then DQ them from losers when it's up. I only like doing that if the player's checked in, which is what I did with Godot. Godot played his winner's match. Or sorry, he played his winner's match, and then, but like if he checked in and he paid, and then I called him, and it's been like 40 minutes and he didn't show up and he didn't tell anyone where he's going, then I would DQ him to losers at that point in case he comes back, because, you know, maybe it was a family emergency, and I know he's actually at the venue. In Ouija's case, he was never at the venue, so I would have just dropped him from the beginning. Because, again, 70-man tournament. If you're not responsible enough to show up when you say you're going to, then why should I be responsible for catering to you? Right? Whereas Godot did show up and he paid and checked in. Thus, I need to cater to him. Because he's paid me. Even though he's not really paying me because there's no real venue fee. I mean, you guys get the dollar thing, but you get my point, I think, right?
Right.
It's just, and I dropped the check-ins for, Xrd, what I called it. I think there was one. I don't remember the name offhand, but... And I do that all the time with Donatos, because people... I don't know if you guys get this, but I get random people from, like, Brooklyn signing up for Donatos Fight Night, and it's like...
We have generally not... every once in a while we've gotten it, but it's been pretty rare. I think I can only remember, like, 3 off the top of my head that's happened. So... I guess Donato is just more popular nationally.
I suppose. I mean, it is a what is it now? 11-year event. So, you know, it might make sense. Those are all the big stuff because, you know, I'll reflect on a lot of the stuff I did to catch up. This part here, it worked. I liked it. I'll do it again. It's just a matter of somehow putting this into words in a format to teach people this that I'm still struggling with. Part of this is a similar concept to my reverse bottlenecking that I do for fighting game stuff, which is where you, you know, if you have player A and player B that are both really good and they're both in Strive and Street Fighter 6, then you play all of player A's matches in Street Fighter 6 while player B plays all of their matches and theoretical matches in Strive. And then once the bracket is literally cannot continue because of the rest of the tournament, you get player B all the way to here or all the way to here in losers, depending on how good they are. Then you do the other matches, you swap player B and player A. And then player A is filling out the rest of its bracket on the other side while B does the other. And that's how you kind of fix that problem. Because you're going to bottleneck no matter what, so you might as well control when you do the bottleneck. I know you know this, I'm more radioing it for the video sake and stuff.
I actually want to call that out specifically for Tuesday Trials 100.
Oh,
so
excellent.
When you were first bottlenecked, Rob Gucci helped out quite a bit on the FGC side, which helped a lot of deconflicting with him. So
yes, because I did try to. I did all of his winter matches first, which was part of that other plan, which kind of helped with that thing.
Exactly. Yep. So I just wanted to point that out as a specific, like that really helped, as well as proto chowder. So
Yes.
at the beginning.
Because, yeah, Proto and Mooney, those were the two that entered the most, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And, then the other thing helps the player, because once Rob got to that point, I could go tell him, like, hey, play Strive until they don't need you anymore.
Right.
And then he doesn't have to worry about Ultimate until you guys tell him. And that puts the burden
Exactly.
on, that removes the burden from him. He doesn't have to worry about being DQ'd. He doesn't have to worry about checking in with me every 5 minutes. He
Right.
just sits on Strive, even if he doesn't have a match called. He just sits at Strive because I don't need him anymore, because I did my end on stuff. And I think if once you guys learn this technique, one of you guys could have done it with Moon and it would have worked.
Right.
I was trying to do it in Blaze Blue with someone, but then there goes my sanity kept calling that person for Salty Sweet. And so I wasn't able to get Blaze Blue as quickly because of that. I think at one point he asked, it doesn't matter, and I didn't want to argue with him at the time, but the truth is that his Salty Sweet match was at the point where it was already bottlenecked, whereas mine was not. Whereas if I completed that one match, I now have 2 matches I can do. One of them would have been that guy's, but the point is that this match can happen while the other one goes to Salty and then potentially gets eliminated. But because that didn't happen, I can't start that other one. In case there goes my sanity watches this. This is all hard to explain with hands. I even did a video on reverse bottlenecking, and it's still hard to. I watch it and go like, God, this still doesn't make sense to me sometimes. It's I'm just not as good with this kind of stuff. But as I try to get people the idea of it, we'll get through it and stuff. Jenga probably shouldn't have happened. Let's be honest,
right.
or needed to happen off stream.
Right. Or it could have been done even the next week or something like that.
Yeah, it's one of those like
we were already past midnight at that point.
This goes back to my Castle Under Siege. It's like the wall is literally on fire, and the king's like, I need to have my cup of tea with the jester now because I said I was going to. That's what Jenga was. Like, instead, the king's supposed to be out supervising the construction of that wall. And no offense to Major on that, because to be fair, he's not out of scope with his decision. We're celebrating the 100th event. Do that with $100 money match in Jenga when Jenga's an established thing in the Tuesday trial scene. Like, he's following the scope. Like, I don't want to call it like I get it. And I could see young Keith doing that too, because it's like, no, we need this. It's part of the thing. But at one point, you got to cut the fat, or just start it early or do it somewhere else. Someone with a phone could have recorded it if you needed footage, stuff like that. And especially because they originally wanted to do a best of 3, they could have it so like the last game's on stream later or something. But oh yeah, we had the pot bonus thing, the miscommunication thing for Smash. That was more of a. This is technically a mistake here, and I'm gonna actually put it in the same realm as the Jenga thing, because we did pay the pot bonuses correctly for 3 players because they just happened to be there at the end of the night when we realized it. So first place and second place got their full payments, and all the players that were not there were all Columbus residents that were going to be there next week anyway, except for maybe Tenet. Which is kind of funny because he's making that joke on how the next tournament's named after him, and he might not be able to make it, which would be hilarious, is what he said in the chat.
Yeah.
But the point is, Ikefuma has that money, he'll get it to him. That's fine and stuff. But I'm still going to mention here in the reflection of how that was missed. And again, that kind of goes back to the whole thing here. But this one across the board, it's like, you knew that Smash had the pot bonuses, but then others, right? Would Major or There Goes My Sanity be like, hey, did Smash get their pot bonus paid? One of them might say that earlier than when Chris realized it. Maybe even early enough when Carrot was there. Stuff like that. And it's the same with this. It's one of those, we already know that there is the phrase, too many cooks in the kitchen, but people do things better together. Yeah, and Carrot's actually flat out just saying he had no idea of the pot bonus. Did Truly give 100 for Smash, or was that something else?
No, Truly gave 100 for Smash. So it was
Yeah.
originally going to be
Yep.
33 each, and then Truly did. Then they upped it to 100 each,
Can I highlight
and then
this any
20 for
more
Princess
than
Trek.
twice? This is
Yeah.
like, it's got the purple highlight on
Yes.
the row and the black one there. I can't
Right.
make it bold in Notepad++.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, like,
Yeah.
Major is one of the leaders of Truly Esports, Carrot, and he gave $100 for the Smash scene and didn't tell the Smash TOs about it.
Right.
So, yeah, that's, exactly. But we got to figure it out, okay? That's an important part. We did get it figured out. I sent for those wondering, I sent a spreadsheet to Carrot and Ikafuma of like, these are the players I paid. This is how much they got paid originally. This is how much the new pot bonus is, and this is who needs paid. And just let me know when they get paid, and we'll market it and stuff. And anything else in reflection, really? I mean,
On reflection,
yeah. Anything major? I kind of want to.
yes, actually, I
Yeah,
think
sure.
when I stepped in, I didn't. Sorry. Sorry, I need to clear my throat. So, in terms of reflection on my end, when I stepped in my usual role of coordination, but I didn't coordinate nearly as well because I think I was relying on you without clearly communicating what the roles I was taking on, and then clearly communicating to you what coordinations that needed to happen. And so I dropped the ball on a couple coordination efforts, especially like with Jenga. I got distracted and I didn't talk with Major about it at the end of the night. So, so that is, I think that was for me. If I'm stepping in, or if I'm assigned to something, um, then if I am going to be coordinated with other people, to just keep in mind to be explicit about the rules and uh, yeah, about the rules that I was doing.
Yeah, I concur. I kind of felt like once Sanity and Asylum stepped in, there has to be a point where the power gets handed back to whoever's like doing the full lead thing.
Right.
Or it needs to be established that I don't take the power back. I was trying to do that. That's why Sanity and I had the mild scuffle of where I mentioned the whole. Did I not put that in the thing? Oh yeah, I'll just mention for like Blaze Blue versus Salty Sweet Bottleneck. And part of that also has to do with the training thing. It's like I know that's a thing with the reverse bottlenecking thing, but not everybody's used to that way of thinking with it. I just know it's faster, 100% every time. That part I do know. When you do it right, it's faster every time, and it's insane how fast it is. It's actually mind-boggling. That's how I can do 30 events in one day, folks. Okay, it's because of this technique. 30 in one day. All right.
I was on Saturday trials. I was doing the first Saturday trials. I did the reverse bottlenecking. That's what allowed us to finish at midnight, even though literally everybody in the staff assumed we were going to go way over midnight.
Yep.
But I still finished it before midnight.
And the reverse bottlenecking carrot goes back to the whole idea of like, if I do a reverse bottleneck and it gets to the point where Rob Gucci now gets back to Strive and the rest of the bracket is now waiting on Rob Gucci. It's all right, Rob Gucci, you play TheKiest's. Sente, you play winner of that. Carrot, you play winner of that. There goes my insanity, you play winner of that. You literally have a line behind the setup.
Right.
And most of those players, they want to go home, so they'll stay in line. They'll watch. And because Rob's the top player, they know they're going to have to fight him. They're going to watch him because they want to win. And if they don't, then you don't really lose time. You don't really lose time because you did that move, because then it just gets to like normal stuff. But yeah, yeah, I think that's about it on that end.
Yep.
Iteration. Normally I'd make this a little longer, but we're kind of running quite long on this video. I'll let you go first while I check on my soup, make sure I didn't burn the kitchen.
So in terms of iteration, Keith pointed out a really good thing earlier in terms of too many events running at the same time. So spacing it out by, say, a 15-minute gap helps out quite a bit, especially when you have multiple TOs calling out multiple events. It also makes the events run a little bit faster. So I think going forward, I'm going to try to make sure that our events are spaced out 15 minutes from the others. Helps out actually would be quite a bit deconflicting with Smash Ultimate because I believe I have Fantasy Strike also running at Smash Ultimate, but then that kind of interferes with yelling over either Carrot or Ikemafuna, or them yelling over me when it comes to Fantasy Strike, calling out Fantasy Strike brackets. So that's one thing I want to get together with the TOs to adjust the start times for some of those events. Um, let's see. I think also a new iteration, specific because it's sometimes hard for new players as well as key stalls that didn't notice the numbering for the stations, is to make the station numbering more prominent. So it'll be a lot easier for people to see the station numbers and go to the proper stations.
Another thing you need to
Um,
do too is when this wouldn't have helped me, but it would help the players. Is
mhm.
like when you call bracket, you have everybody's attention. So at that point, you could be like, "Hey, just so you know, station number's right here." That's all you kind of need in case it's like not
Oh,
as
okay. That's
not
good.
as
That's good.
prominent. It's you know what I mean,
Right.
like just as a reminder, like that kind of a thing. Karen, I will answer your question when we're done with this part because I've been kind of going through the chat when each of the sections are done, which we were pretty much done at that end, and that's why I was taking a lot of the stuff. But there is a way to reverse bottleneck that because I'll get to what the objective of the bottleneck part is in a sec. Because we did that with Proto, actually, who went 1 and 2 and 0 and 2 in a lot of his events. Um, yeah, like I said, the start time thing, and I would actually, and I do this for Cockatoo, actually have a formal time for announcement on your schedule.
All right.
And that's more for you guys, not for the
Mm-hmm.
players. But it's still, if you have it formal of 6:45 or I'm just throwing a time out there. Obviously, you guys figure it out. 6:45 announcements, okay, and then that way you can get any of the news out of the way. And some weeks it might be a minute, and other times it might be 5 to 10 minutes, like what I did with the 100th, because there's a lot to say. Right?
Yep.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Cockatoo. I always do 12:30 is my first game. 12:15 is the announcements, and I
Mhm.
have that on there and stuff. Because it is as important as the other events when you think about it. Sorry, I should phrase things like this. It's just as important as your other tournaments, but it's still part of the event and a major part of it and stuff. Yeah, and I'll say the same thing on the iteration thing. It's one event, one team.
Right.
Uh, that'll take time. It's hard. I get it. But just a little bit here
I
and
would
there.
like. Right. I think it'll be very helpful for me to run a Smash bracket, and then for any other TOs that come on or whatever, to run an FGC bracket and a Smash bracket, so they get to feel the different communities on both sides
The
and
thing I would
both
amend to
person's
that
input.
is if you
Yeah.
put a Smash TO who's used to running 40 to 70 man brackets to just run Strive, they're not going to get anything out of it. What you do
Gotcha.
is they need to run two FGC events at the same time.
Okay.
They
That
have to
sounds good.
do Strive and Fantasy Strike that have both launched 15 minutes apart, and knowing how to
All right.
deal with the two pages.
Okay.
Um, which some smashers that are used to doing pools all the time, because some weeklies do pools. The they are used to, or rather they do pools, but it's still one TO, so it's one TO running two pools at the same time. That's the same skill set, and some of those smashers are good at it. But these days, we have so many members in the Smash community that we always have pool captains available, even if they're from out of town. Like
Mhm.
Carrot seems like the type where if he went to a Sensei tournament and they're like, "Hey, we need a pool captain last minute. Do you mind?" He'd probably say yes. And that's great. That's beautiful. From a learning how to become a better TO, there are times you have to challenge yourself with the running two 10-man events that are happening at the same time is a separate skill set than running a giant 60-man event. And that's exactly what you're saying. The FGC side, they're used to the two 10-man events. And they look at a 60-man and go, that's pretty daunting, which is, they're not wrong. But it's funny because then I have the 60-man people, they look at, actually, Adam Maley told me this just the other day, because I mentioned, like, yeah, I run 6 events at Donato's. And they're like, that's hard. And I'm like, you guys run 50-man events at Rubes Day. And these 6-man events are like 8 people, 2 to 8 people. Like, they're the same level of difficulty. They're just... It's just there's 2 fires on both ends, and both sides are saying, "What are you doing? You're on fire. What's wrong with you?" I don't want to be in that, and you're like on fire as you're telling someone that. It's kind of funny.
Right.
One thing is publicly, I need to work on this to Donato's too. Why have the drink specials if they're not brought up to attention?
Oh, okay.
I needed that in my initial announcements, or that needs to be somewhere needs to have this, or people need to just, or even just like bracket callers, just remind people that, but this is calling the initial bracket. Other tournaments I've done, I like that. I'm a showman, so I like hogging the spotlight and announcing everything. But technically, the proper way to do it would have been any of the specialty rules. Each TO just repeats that whenever they call bracket.
Okay.
So like, when I call ultimate, I can be like, "This is the station sign. Restrooms are here. These are the specials at GA. Come to whoever if you need help. Call it." And then I do the exact same line when I call SF6. I do the exact same line when I call Xrd, and you do the exact same line when you call Fantasy Strike. Does that make sense? Because then it's kind of like, then you don't have to yell over people either.
Right. Mm-hmm. I didn't really think about that because I was so used to your style of doing things. In terms of
yeah.
Like,
It's you know, this is why we do OPERIs, because like it's a selfish thing I do, and it's a problem sometimes. Or not everybody does it that way and stuff. So
right.
Yeah. I think I caught the beginning what you said. I don't remember if you were focusing on too many events being at Tuesdays or if staggered time.
No, it was mostly staggered time.
Okay.
And, yeah.
So the one thing I'm going to just mention for Tuesday trials in general is that you're now suffering the same problem Donato's had before we did the split.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Which is you've got too many events, can't add new ones, and you try to add new ones. You guys, pretty much you have to cut the fat or send people over or split your event like I did.
Right.
So. You know, and for those watching it later, if they get this far, because it's a hour 45-minute video or something, how do I phrase this? We are, and when I say the greater Columbus community, I'm talking about Smash Ultimate, Smash Melee, the Columbus fighting game community, which includes the SF6 scene, the anime fighting game community scene, and the Tekken scene, and then everyone else. And I'm kind of like splitting those into 4 because that's kind of how our weeklies are structured. We're one house, and if you're sitting in a room, if you're in one house and your kitchen is just overflowed with people, and it's at the point where people are starting to become uncomfortable in that kitchen, even though it's the most popular place because that's where all the awesome food is and stuff, right? You gotta, as a scene, figure out how you can help us organizers and help the other rooms, because while that's happening, you might have a room where, the power's out, and you need someone in there to like change the fuses, but all the fuse changers are at the kitchen, and they're crammed in there not doing fuse changing stuff. It's a weird metaphor, but the point is, it's like, it kind of goes back to the whole iteration thing here. It's one event, one team. I'm at the level where I'm kind of like the scene organizer, where I'm looking at this as not just one event of Tuesday Trials. I'm looking at it as one scene. Tuesday Trials, Rubes Days, Smashland when it was the thing, Donato's Fight Night, Level 1 Barcade Fights, the new Bookets and Brackets, the unnamed, actually, I forget the name of the tournament. There's a new one in Gahanna that Ultimate's been doing that's like a 16-man event, but it's like Unnamed Tournament, I think is the name of the series, which is clever, because it's supposed to be just a look, I just want to play Smash with buddies, and you guys can come too. So unnamed tournament. It's all one group. It's all affects each other. And when there's times your event is having problems because of overcrowding, you need to figure out how you can then spread that to the other stuff. Ultimately, it all depends on the scene, because if players at Tuesday Trials don't want to do Donatos, that's fine. But that's the choice that they kind of have to make at that point. Is, okay, you want to do 8 games at Tuesday Trials? Well, we don't have the time or space to do 8. We only have the time and space to do 6. So which 2 are we not doing? And if you want to do those 2, you got to go somewhere else. And you two can, and the beauty about Donatos, the way I have it phrased, is that I'll run everything. So whatever games you guys don't want at Trials, I'll run, and it's fine. And those people can come here, and vice versa and stuff. But that's kind of that's more of a scene iteration thing. Not really a Tuesday trial. Like, it is a Tuesday trial thing, but it's not really. It's a call you and I and the other TOs can try to make. And I was talking to Chushichi about this too. And, you know, anytime we talk, it's always okay, let's go back and talk to the scene and figure out what we can do. Because we could have Melty Blood at Donatos, even though most of the Melty Blood players are at Tuesday Trials. Or if we want to keep Melty Blood with its sibling game, which I'm not sure what it is, but I guess a better example would be. Yeah, you're right. So, you know, you have both of them at the same event or something.
Yeah, that's why I have. Yeah, that's actually the reason why I have Red Week and Blue Week set up the way they are. Uniclear and Melty Blood are on Blue Week because they're sister games. Exert and Blaze Blue are on Red Week because those are sister games.
Right. So it's like. Yeah, and then, you know, sometimes that even means like, so like Donatos, despite it being bi-weekly, we don't run SF6 every week. We don't run, when MK1 comes out, we're not going to run it every week. Tekken 8 comes out, we're not going to run it every week. It's got to be and the reason we do that is on purpose, so that other events can thrive with it. Because we run it every week. If we ran Donatos every week, there's no Tuesday's Trials. That's just how it worked. I split Donatos into Tuesday Trials because I can't run it every week, and I think it's immorally wrong to run it every week, especially when Columbus has such amazing venues and people that can do all the things we do in one week. That kind of has to be the change on the other end. Otherwise, the other direction is if you don't do all that, then you are declaring, I don't want to say war on the scene, but you're essentially changing the house into a circus tent. Which a lot of scenes they like having a venue where you have 200 people every week and do everything, and you start at 4 and you leave at 2 in the AM and stuff. Like a lot of places do that. I've discovered that's not healthy for most people, and you get more people on average if you do it the way we're doing it, across unique entrance and stuff. So lots to think about on that. I'll end the video with my grading for the event, which I'm really strict on the grades. Like, I rarely give tournaments A's, so don't be traumatized by your school days thing where a B is the devil or a C is awful, because C stands for average. All right, it's okay to get C's in the real world. Everybody does it. That's why it's called average. I call Tuesday Trials a solid B, or Tuesday Trials 100 a solid B. It would have been C+ with the mistakes, but with the stepping in of your team, did amazing work. They saved the tournament. It made it a B.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You've trained them well, they've learned well, and they've experienced it well. Carrot and Ikafuma have also created a great Smash thing that I had no problems running Ultimate because of the work those two put in to make that event what it is. It felt like putting on, it was like trying a new glove, you know, like, I just put the glove on and I still bowl my strikes. That's what it felt like. Which is great. That's how I felt about that. It's, you guys have a very well-tuned engine, and it's catering to the point where multiple people can do things, and maybe eventually you guys get to the point where you guys can even rotate when you guys are running stuff, so you don't have to be there every week, or one week you can be there as a competitor and not an organizer. All sorts of options are open, or just, you know, run it forever, because you can do that too. But what grade would you give? Something similar, or
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say.
almost wanted to have you go first, but I forgot.
Right. I was gonna say, because going again, like C being average, I was gonna say C plus actually, just because we went over time. There's a lot of little mistakes that popped up that we could have nipped in the bud earlier. Um, and I also I think it just what's the word? There's a lot of areas I know we can improve that I have not implemented yet. So especially with reverse bottlenecking, being more consistent with that across the team as
one
far
of
as that.
one of the things I definitely do in grades, and this is important for the TOs, is when you're grading your own vent. Everything in this category is not part of the grade.
Which category? I can't see.
Oh,
I don't
am
know.
I not streaming it?
Oh, you're streaming it because
It's I have it
I just checked
highlighted.
on my phone.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
it's just the Discord. I can't see it, so
oh, you can't.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I
yeah.
thought I was sharing it to you on Discord this whole time in the video chat. It's
When you closed
shared.
it down, I couldn't see it. So
Oh, weird. Anyways, yeah, iteration section. That whole section is not part of the grade.
okay.
Reflection and execution.
Reflection execution. Okay, then I'll.
Or everything else, because like because that's the thing. Execution, because like when you're grading a tournament, it's about the overall. The players aren't going to care about what you're going to do next tournament. You know,
Right.
like I gave this tournament a C because we didn't do we need to do station signs going forward. Like I don't. It's kind of a you could say because the station signs weren't as prominent and stuff. I think it's more along the lines of like a the key things for me is that players didn't complain. While it did end late, it was one event that ended late, which was the Blaze Blue event, which was a free to enter tournament. So you don't have anyone who's like I just want to leave so I can get paid. Those players, if they were really disappointed, they could have left at any time. Free bracket. You don't want them to as a TO, but the main events, the ones that did have payouts, those all finished on time. Those all finished quickly once we caught up. The pot bonus thing is kind of a mistake because I heavily think people need to get paid exactly what they're supposed to get paid at the thing, but that's kind of a minus point, but it's not enough to make it. But again, then while you criticize things, I like to start at the event's perfect and then remove the mistakes and then add back what they did amazing and stuff. And what you guys did amazing was your team doing what they do. Yeah. I'm going to answer. Okay, now I'm going to finish this by going through chat, which I think is Carrot was just asking me a question about the. Oh, I want to see this Go Man tweet that someone put in. Oh, it's this old one they just saved. So disappointed in the Ohio Smash scene. They are weak and fake. After being told the Columbus Tuesday Trials was the best Smash tournament in Ohio, they canceled the tournament a couple hours before it started. I think it was like sometime in 2020. Or in last year, you had to cancel it last minute or something. It was probably because, like, COVID crap.
Oh, yeah, that would have been during the COVID times.
Yeah. So it's just kind of... Go-Man's a memer. I'm not...
Yeah.
I don't put any weight into stuff.
Yeah.
In the weak sauce, that's what the quote was. Then... Yeah, so what happens when most of the people in multiple games are going 0-2, 1-2, and all of them? How do you reverse bottleneck this? The concept of reverse bottlenecking is to... the main goal, it kind of goes back to what you were saying to me, is to eliminate players, right? So if Proto is your example here, because he went 0-2, 1-2 at most of the events he entered, you stagger your events so they're scheduled. You don't run 3 games all at once because then that guy's in all 3 of them, and that's kind of hard to do it and stuff. But the beauty about players like Proto, when it comes to reverse bottlenecking, when I gave the example of player A and player, like, you have 2 players in one bracket, 2 players in another, and something like that. So, like, let's say, in that example I gave earlier, I had player A and player B both being really good at the game, and they got to the end. Let's switch it up. Let's say it's, and this is what we did, actually. Let's say it's Rob Gucci on the Smash end, and he's in Ultimate and Strive, and you have Proto, who's also in Ultimate and Strive, right? You run all of Proto's games first down here. and you do all of Rob's games done. If Proto gets bam bam eliminated immediately, then you're done. Then you just run your tournament, right? Or you can even just go like, let's do all the games that don't involve Rob, because you just have to do that because Rob's busy over here. You're already done, right? Because he just got eliminated. He's been eliminated for one game, and then that means you can then have the option to either, you know, have him do his ultimate game so he's eliminated there too, or if there's a third game, he could finally go do that game, or, you know, he's just freed up. You got to free up resource. Let's take the other situation of you don't have Rob and you have two 1 and 2ers. You kind of do the same thing. You run them until you can't do matches anymore. And by can't do matches, you either have the Rob Gucci case where he can't do matches because he's so far ahead the rest of the tournament has to catch up, or he can't do matches because he has lost and is now in losers. And you're probably asking this part, it's like, well, I don't know when he's going to get sent to losers, so how do I know how to do that match part? And that is the difficult part, and that's where you start calling in the stuff. He's only one. So in this one person example, let's say you have your 8 setups for this one person for this tournament, and you have this one person, and you know if in round 1 if he loses in one of these 2 spots, you know, player A, player B, player A is the guy we're trying to reverse bottleneck, and he's not as good. He loses. You already know what the match is that goes to that loss, right? So you call A versus B and you call C versus D, because the loser of C and D is going to play the loser of that, and the winner of C and D is also going to play the winner of that, right? So you have those 2 called. And you have, and then instead of doing like the very bottom stuff, I'm sorry, not instead of the very bottom stuff. Instead of doing the next 2 matches, you look at the theoreticals, right? You go, okay, but what if player A won, and he's the guy who's A's your target? If he won, he'll go to winners, right? But then if he loses there, where does he go? He goes to the other side of the bracket, because that's how the bracket theory crafting works. So instead of calling A versus B, C versus D, and then E versus F, and G versus H, instead of calling these E, F, and GH ones, you all the way go down the bottom and go, all right, let's have X, Y, and let's have X and Z play instead. That way, when they lose, right, then that match is ready to go, so that when A loses in that winner step, you do that. And you use your setups that way to try to keep that going. If they get super far, that just meant that he was actually better than you expected, and he just won. But if he's someone who you know is going to go with the 1 and 2, and this is where you kind of know because you seeded him that way, you can start to like get where they're supposed to go and that stuff. And as they get farther in one bracket or the other, you can kind of figure it out. But either way, if they get sent to losers super early and they can't play matches, then you just send them over to the other game at that point. But the point is that you don't call straight down the list. And that's kind of why you saw me just pick what seemed like random matches. And the answer to that was I wasn't doing random matches. I was trying to get the conflicts played out, getting Rob Gucci through, or Tenet, trying to get Tenet through, whatever games they would have to deal with when they're in losers and stuff. I hope that answers the question. I'll let you know. Oh, problem with Saturday trials. Yeah, it's still kind of funny, though. If that doesn't make sense, feel free to DM me, or anyone watching. This will go on YouTube. You can DM in the comments and stuff. But did that make sense to you, Sente?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but I also already have an idea of or already know what the concept
yeah,
is.
you knew what the concept was, right?
Right. So I'm not a very good person to ask that question.
It's a lot of Donato's for me has, I keep saying scope, and Donato's, I keep realizing these days, is it's a blank canvas. It becomes what's needed from me in the scene. And for me, it's been my TO lab area, like players lab in training mode for hours. Donato's is where I lab on TOing. So that when I need to be catching up in a 70-man, 5-man bracket, I can do that. Or if I need to be running 30 games in one day, I can do that because of what I put myself through at the Donato's weeklies and finding that right path. Whether Tuesday Trials team can do that is hard to say, because it might mess with the scope, especially as, a lot of what your guys' innovation is to actually make it better, and you guys have made leaps and bounds with that kind of stuff, and I don't like the idea of that being hindered. With that said, if the scene's cool with it, do it once a month or something, I don't know. But the point is like, I lab my TOing, and it took a long time to figure out when and how to bottleneck stuff, and a lot of mess ups, especially during the Smash 4 era, where you just think you did it right, and then both your bottlenecked targets meet and fifth place matches in all 4 of your games, and you're like, crap, I messed it up.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. This was good. It was 2 hours, but it's fine. It was good. This is good content.
Yeah. I don't think I have any more final thoughts. Actually,
I don't.
It helped out actually a good bit. You putting words to paper in terms of a lot of things that we can work on.
Yeah, and I'll slap this and I'll just DM this to you directly. I don't want to slap it into the Tuesday Trials thing because it's more of a you and Chris are like the head guys, and it's not appropriate for me to put in the criticisms into the Discord. Even though I made this video, but it's, you know what I mean. It's an authority thing,
right?
Even though again you are one team, one blah blah blah, but there's specific roles, like head TO is a role, and that needs respected.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. If chat has no other questions, which they don't, you guys can again DM me whatever. And we're right at 2 hours. All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Yep. I am gonna. Yep. Until next time.